but today it really came to the forefront. There's a lot of sort of buzz about this project called the Velvet Sundown. The Velvet Sundown. So the question about the Velvet Sundown is that if you Google it, is whether or not this is an AI generated band. And the particular, I've got some articles up there on the page. The particular sort of issue is they have about, I didn't go to Spotify, but they have about 500,000 streams as of the video that I watched. Is probably 1 million now because of all the people talking about it. And you know, there's been a lot of talk about Spotify not allowing AI generated music, and then also if you look deeply at the account, or if you sort of based on this video I saw, if you sort of check in on some of the followers, it seems like a lot of the followers are AI. So the suspicion is that it's an AI generated project, and then also that perhaps there were AI generated accounts that are following it, you know, to as a way to make money. Again, I'll just click on a couple of these articles, hopefully, and just to show you a visual. Let's see. I'm not going to click on that. Scared of clicking on images. So, if you can kind of see, if you look at this image, you sort of can see that it looks a little, you know, if you look closely, I mean, for sure, it kind of looks like an AI generated photo. If you spend a little bit of time looking at them. And I wasn't planning on showing you these photos, but we'll do it anyway. This is, you know, the famous Abbey Road photo here that they've you know, obviously, even if it wasn't AI, it's been they've been photoshopped or something on this, unless they flew out to, no, they didn't fly out to the UK because the vintage cars in the background, unless they have a huge budget. So you get the idea. Half a million monthly listeners, according to Louder, and you know, and is it AI? So it just popped in my head again. Impromptu video here, just popped in my head. Can we tell? Are there indicators? Can we tell AI music from focusing on the drums? Since this is a drum channel. Now, I also produce music. I'm a composer. I have a lot of different, you know, channels and different things that I do, and I have the music that was playing in the intro was one of mine, not AI generated, by the way. Played every note, but you know, so when you listen to AI music, sometimes if you're a music producer, sometimes you can sort of instantly tell by, I don't know, maybe the sound of the vocal or how mechanical everything is, or the lyrics. You know, the lyrics sometimes are, if it's AI generated, you're like, that's kind of silly. You know, why'd they rhyme this with that? You know, so you can kind of get a sense of that. The lyrics are usually a pretty good indicator. The way it's mixed, in the same way, if you happen to be watching this and you're not a music producer, I can just tell you that the way things sound, like the overall, in the same way that when you looked at one of those AI images there, and you say, oh, did I lose it? You know, you look at one of those AI images and you're like, you know, it kind of looks like they're all sort of in the same space here, you know, and you can kind of see, you know, you can sort of see how the one looks like he's transposed over the other, and everything's kind of perfect. And, you know, if you start to really look at the lighting situation, maybe there's some clues there. And the way this drummer's recessed in the background, all these sorts of things, you know, most of us visually can look at these things. Once you've seen them, you can't unsee it, you know. It's the same way with music. When you hear things, not to say it's 100% AI technology, make it better to the point where we can't tell. Things are, you know, are progressing in that world, but in the same way that you can oftentimes look at an AI image and say, oh, that's obviously AI generated, or you might even say it's a really good AI generation, but I can still tell, or sometimes I'm not sure. You have to look really closely. Same thing with music. When you hear it, you oftentimes, particularly when you hear 2 or 3 tracks back to back, you start to hear some sort of aural patterns. So there's my stream. So I guess what I want to do today is I want to audition some of their music and focus on the drums and see if we can tell that it's AI generated from just listening to the drums. Now, what I have not done today, and would be an interesting, well, maybe it'd be interesting to me, but what would be interesting would be to remove the drums via stem separator and just listen to the drums. And by doing that, I feel very confident that you could tell if you were just listening to the drums, whether or not it was AI generated. And also, let me just say, full disclosure here, I've listened to probably a total of about 2 minutes of this music, so I don't really know the answer. I clicked on a couple. I clicked on a song. I clicked on another song. Listened to 30 seconds, 2 or 3 songs. So we might go through this. I don't know, depending on how much time I have. We might go through several songs, but the idea is I'm just going to play some of the tracks and see if I'm going to see if I can hear AI generated drums by just listening to just the drums. And again, if we were to isolate these drums, stem separate them, and we just listen to the drums, I could clearly point out this is this, and you would probably hear it too if you're a drummer or a musician. So let me just go to, I'm gonna click on their profile here. Okay, and we have, oh wow, they have a lot of songs. I did not expect that. I'm going to need to stop and blow my nose here in a second. Sorry about that. You can kind of see these numbers. Very interesting. This is on different, this is YouTube music. It's not Spotify. So their top track here, another thing I want to point out, this is we can learn, by the way, from AI in the sense that musicians are now starting to talk about. There's still there's a lot of issues right now with AI from legal standpoints. There's issues with Suno. There's issues with all these things. There's mainly issues with AI companies taking music without paying for it and then regenerating it enough to the point that they don't have to pay the original artist and then selling it. That's one of the big issues right now in terms of for composers. So for those of you that may or may not be aware of that, that's a big problem right now. Taking a song from, could be someone unknown, could be someone very well known, just because of course an AI algorithm can just scrape the entire internet pretty quickly, absorb the information, regenerate it, and spit it back out without necessarily paying the original artist for the training of the AI, and then go on to make a whole lot of money from it. So that's one big issue. And then people are also infuriated by the fact that I've been following the AI thing for a while now. I've been listening to AI music for a while now, and I've been listening to the progression of it. Where it started, where it is now, and it's super interesting. I think it's good to be, if you're there's a camp, a side to this story where people are just like, I hate it. And then there's this there's a side where people are more like sort of saying, this is a tool that we can use as musicians, as composers, as artists. This is a tool that we can use in various ways, like maybe I don't know what, idea generation, or maybe if you said, give me 4 ideas of of a chord progression in this key, and and I'm trying to evoke this mood, and then maybe you take one of them and then rewrite it, as a way to just generate ideas or something like that. In the same way that let me step over to the pro AI for a second. In the same way that you might say when you're playing a sequencer, you're using a machine, and you're saying, I don't know, and you hit the arpeggiator, and you go do 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 do, and then you're like, okay, so that machine is inspiring you into to move in a certain way, to oh, okay, I'm going to try this chord, let's see if that works. So in that sense, you're using some might argue analog. Of course, it's digital now, but you're using a machine to help inspire you. So I think in that way, we might be able to use AI technology. It's all a machine to for some sort of inspiration. Where it's at right now is in a really awkward place, again, because of these legal issues, which I'm very of course, in the artist corner in that sense. Those issues have to be worked out. All these copyright issues and all these sorts of things, they have to be worked out, and they need to be worked out in the artist's favor. And this has, of course, been a long-standing issue that I won't get into with the streamers and how much they're paying artists and all those things. And this is just like another sort of like chip away at what's already very challenging for artists trying to make money as by selling their music or something. So the AI thing needs, in terms of the legalities of it, in terms of that's something that's not good right now, and it needs to be worked out. And there are some people that are working on that. But on the plus side, the idea of using some of these tools. All of for those of you that are in music production, you already know this. For those of you that don't, I'll go ahead and tell you, all of our many of our tools that have been updated, meaning software, DAWs, plugins, mixing, mastering, synthesizers, these are things that are built into our workflow. All of those that have had updates in the past year, which is most of them, have AI elements to them. Some of them have already had them for a long time, a few years. So that is to say, for instance, Logic Pro now has several different AI features in it. And so that would be an example of a music producer, an artist, somebody using AI tools to help them, give them a starting point for a mastering chain. That's one that I've used. So I'll say what it does is you click on analyze, you play the loudest part of your music, and it listens to it, and then it spits out a mastering chain, and then you kind of listen back to it, and you like it or you don't. You try another one. It can be a starting point. It's never, so far what I've heard, it's never. I guess so far, I mean, I've spent some hours with it, and I have not ever heard it spit out something that I used or was happy with. But it is interesting to see, particularly if you use the A/B feature. So let's say you use AI to say I think this is a good use of AI technology. If you're comparing two mixes or two mastering, and you say, here is a track, and actually this technology is not that good yet, but I think it will be. I've tried this and I was disappointed with the results. But I think potentially, if you say, the piece of music is written, produced, and I'm mixing and mastering it now. I'm mixing it and or mastering it. And then you take a track that you think sounds amazing, or does sound amazing, and you put it into the AI and you say, master mine like this is mastered, or mixed. I guess, yeah, it'll be mixing too eventually, but master mine like that's mastered. And then in theory, it would spit out something that is identical in terms of mastering. So that would be really cool when and if it ever works. All the AI mastering features, they have this now, but again, I have not so far I haven't been satisfied with it. Okay, I don't want to digress too much. Let's check out some of these tracks. At least I'll get in 20 minutes of a stream here in case this gets shut down because of copyright infringement or something. I don't think it will. This is just educational purposes. Again, this channel is not monetized, so I don't think it'll be an issue. We'll see. So, first thing I noticed is that this dust on the wind. I think Kansas may have an issue with that. They the 70s and 80s legendary rock band Kansas has a song called "Dust in the Wind," and it's a huge song. Yeah, I don't know. That check my volume here. We'll see if it sounds like it. So what I'm going to do here is going to be listening to the drums, see what we hear. Hand hard left on the snare.
Dust on the wind, boots on the ground, smoke in the sky, no peace found. Rivers run red, the drums roll slow. Tell me, brother, where do we go? Raise your hand, don't look away. Sing out loud, make them pay. March for peace, not for pride. Let that flag turn with the tide.
Okay, so I'm going to go back to the beginning. Since the drums were isolated, this is probably a good one. And they're probably about to be isolated here too. Wait, let's listen for a second, then I'll go back.
Guitars cry out.
Okay. Let's go back to where the drums come in.
Dust on the wind, boots on the ground, smoke in the sky.
So the first thing I hear is that the snare, if this is a snare sample, which it sounds like it is to me, it's changing. It's already changed at least 3 times in this intro here. And also where I stopped a second ago, in the middle of the song there, we'll check that out. It's that was a different sample also. So side note here, if you are producing music and you're using samples, this is a great trick. And this is back to where we can maybe learn from if this is AI, where we can learn from AI. The idea that drummers don't hit the drum exactly the same every time. Now, really, really good drummers that are recording every single day and have an immense amount of control and have years of experience can. But even within that, there's a little bit of fluctuation in ebb and flow, which is desirable, again, unless you're trying to sound like a machine. So I would point to a drummer like Steve Gadd, who would... there's a lot of great drummers, but he's a legendary sort of studio guy who has this particular kind of snare sound that he uses. He uses something like this on top of his snare. For those of you that don't know, if you don't know about this, this is gold. If you don't have one of these, get one. Changes the sound of your snare instantly. And you can actually make one out of an old head. But you might just want to buy that one. But I'm not going to do any ads for any companies today. So, but And what it does is it does make the snare sound a little more consistent on every hit, because there's less ringing, so there's less there's fewer variables every time you hit it. So Gad is one of those cats. If you go back and listen to the bajillions of recordings and records he's been on, you'll hear what I'm saying. He has, like, every snare hit is pretty consistent, unless he is doing something different. So it is possible to do this, but in general, what's happening, because we're human, is we're hitting the drum a little different every time. The drummer is one of the few people in the band that we're supposed to be repeating things over and over and over and over and over. Not so much the same with vocalists or guitarists or bass players, some, but they're moving around, so we expect some variation. But with drums, we're hearing one, and in some instances, we're trying to make that snare on 2 and 4 sound the same every single hit, unless we're not. So, in what I'm hearing here is the AI probably has varied the samples dynamically a little bit. Not only varied the samples, but there's the length of the sample itself. So, in other words, versus those could have been varied, and then the dynamic levels, and then also what producers often do, and AI would know this, is they have a variety of different samples for one individual instrument. So in other words, if I'm programming a drum beat, I might have 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 different samples of that same drum set, so that I can make it sound more human. So that is a great thing to be aware of if you're a music producer, if you're new to music production and you haven't, unless you want, like, some styles, EDM, hip hop, I talked about it. I have another video, by the way, that's Think Like a Drummer I did recently. I think it was a stream, a live stream. Check it out. But I talk about, I gave some examples. I think I was playing on the set, if I remember. It was a few weeks ago. But in hip hop, oftentimes maybe you want it to sound like a loop that sounds the same every single time, even though within the context of the loop, maybe there's dynamics. But you might want that that looping sound. In certain kinds of electronic dance music, you might want a certain consistency all the time. So that there are instances where you're going for this. But of course, this is supposed to sound very organic. This is supposed to sound like in theory, like a bunch of guys in a room jamming together. So I just realized, is this 2 different albums? I'm seeing 2 titles here, although the cover looks similar. I'm seeing Floating on Echoes and Dust and Silence. I guess we'll see as we go here. Okay, so in the beginning here with the snares, here it comes.
I know peace.
Listen to the volume drop when the vocal comes in.
Dust on the wind, boots on the ground, smoke in the sky.
It sounds to me almost like it's a softer, it's less attack. And this is something a good drummer would do. Get out of the way of the vocals.
I know peace found, rivers run red, the drums roll slow. Tell me, brother, where do we go? Raise your hand, don't look away. Sing out loud, make them pay. Dust on.
I'm also hearing an accent on the ands, on the upbeats. That's a pretty common thing that drummers do. So far, this idea that I think so far what I'm hearing is that it sounds like a sampled snare, hi-hat to be determined, but yeah, probably a sampled hi-hat, Snare's kind of a little bit of a giveaway. Sampled sounds, they have a certain density to them, a certain sound to them. Oftentimes, it is a fixed position. It's one sound. Again, when a drummer's playing, you don't hear one sound over and over. You hear a bunch of sounds. So, because of the human variance of how they're hitting the drum, where they're hitting the drum, all those things. So, sounds have a certain consistency, and in this case, the AI has made an attempt to vary that. It's pretty detail oriented. One thing I'll point out, let's go to the next section here, and you'll hear. So we've got this duller sound here, this flatter, duller sound. On this next verse section, I believe, or chorus, whatever's about to happen here, it goes to almost a rim shot kind of sound, which again, so this idea of this is something that we can talk about, this idea that songs kind of do this. So we have arcs, we get bigger and louder, and we come back down bigger and louder. And this is a trick that all producers do often. All right, let's check out this next section. So we've got this sound here, right, compared to this sound right here coming in.
Guitars cry
So that's a whole different sample there.
out, bullets fly. Mama prays while young men die.
It's considerably louder and more of a rim shotty kind of sound. So when this was recorded, when the sample was recorded, and if I find out I'm wrong about all this, and this is an actual real band, I don't think so. But but it doesn't really matter. Whenever whoever recorded the sample, wherever that came from, at this particular point, when they were sampling it, the drummer was hitting harder, right? And was hitting more of a rim shot kind of sound, okay?
Ashes fall on sacred land. We still got time to make a stand. Raise your hand, don't look away.
Okay, let's try another song. This one's really good because that one's really good because it's slow and the drums are isolated. The other thing I was going to point out was I'm really focusing on the hi-hat, and I don't have a clear picture on the hi-hat yet, but I do hear that they are changing up the hi-hat throughout the piece a little bit.
Sing out loud, make 'em pay.
Yeah, this hi-hat now is louder. That's a little unusual. I don't know if you noticed in the beginning. It's a little unusual. I mean, not the Beatles. I mean, the Beatles did it. Lots of bands did, but it's a little unusual. Everything in the beginning is kind of panned, kind of hard right, and then the drums come in kind of hard left. That is an unusual decision. It's cool. It's fine. It's just most mix engineers may or may not make that decision. This is over here. And then the drums. Let's see if they maintain that here.
Raise your hand, don't look away. Sing out loud.
Hi-hats seem a little louder here to me, which is again this arc.
Make 'em pay.
Let's see where they go at the end.
Smoke will clear, truth won't bend.
Ooh,
Let the sun.
voice sounds totally different there. Sounds like, so if that were a real singer, I would say this was a different day. Like they did half the take, and this happens sometimes. They did some takes, and then they had to take a break, and then they came back a couple days later and to finish out the song, and then the voice sounds different.
On fight till the end.
Okay, let's see. That was Dust On the Wind. Let's see what this. So the next most popular song, at least on YouTube Music, is from. So that was from. If these are albums here, which I believe they are, that was from Floating on Echoes. This is from Dust and Silence. I wish I had dates right here. I'll have to click back to get the dates, but let's keep going.
Shadows fall on broken ground, silent cries without a sound, falling leaves and shattered dreams.
So this so far is, other than the fact that there's more tom fills and stuff like that, this is much more consistent so far. What I want to find out is, let me open this in a new tab here. Oop, that's not going to work. I want to see if, without losing my place here, I want to see if, oh, you get to see my library. What channel is this? The studio drummer? Yeah. I want to see if I can, so that I know it right. Okay. So Dust and Silence is 2025. Okay. And then, let's see here. So that's the new one. I'm going to keep showing that. Floating on Echoes. Floating on Echoes. When is that? Nope. It's not showing up. Oh, there it is. Okay. Floating on Echoes 2025. Okay, so they were both released. Okay. Both released in 2025. The Floating on Echoes. Let me open that. And I'll just open this here. Okay. And you can kind of see the cover here. For those of you that are following AI generated art, I don't know. So this is Floating on Echoes. Okay, let me go back and look at the other one. Dust and Silence. Okay, yeah. Yeah, the artists, I'm going to guess, I mean, I know some artists, so I can say this pretty confidently. Visual artists. Artists probably feel about AI generated art the way we feel about AI generated music, in terms of, it's, you take a glance at it and you're like, oh yeah, that's AI, versus in the music, same way. Once you've heard it, you've heard it. Okay, let's go back. We're on Echoes Through the Pines.
Nothing's ever as it seems, holding peace on a brighter day. Footsteps fade.
Okay, so let's check out that tom fill. Go. Dead toms, medium hall reverb. Let's see how that compares to the tom fills in the beginning. Just curious. About the same.
Footsteps fade,
A little bigger verb. It's isolated lick.
but still remain. Grief and arms we stand. Raise your voice, don't walk away. Brighter day.
So, at the very least, you can tell that the things are sampled on this one. There's less dynamic interplay on this one, I would say, in terms of the drums. So, and this is from a different album. This is from Dust and Silence versus Floating on Echoes. I don't know if that matters. The next most popular song, let's take a listen to it. So, and remember, what I'm sort of trying to talk about here is, can we tell it's AI from just the drums? Well, so far, I think we can tell that the drums are not human. Also, I think the more and more we start to listen to this, I think we may be able to start to see some patterns. Okay, so starting to see a pattern of intros with with a breakdown and a drum fill. So that's it, from a songwriting standpoint. Yeah, there's AI tends to pick a pattern that it likes and then sort of replicate that. I was going to say something else about this one's mixed differently. By the way, it's a lot brighter. Oh, I know what I was going to say. I haven't even mentioned, I did talk about vocals, but I haven't even talked about guitar or any of the other instruments going on. If you're a guitar player or something else, you're already probably screaming at the screen, yeah, but listen to the guitar. Because some of the things I've heard so far don't sound like actual, guitars, as an example. Somebody fed some vintage black keys into this one.
Marching goes with no command.
Again, the lyrics, not even going to touch those.
Velvet boots on mirrored ground. Drums of thunder, distant sound. Promises
distortion.
in static blue. Echo loud.
That was interesting. Let's check that real quick.
Echo loud. Promises in static blue.
I'm trying to figure out if that's something a human would have played.
Static blue. Promises in static blue. Promises in static blue.
possible. It's very, very, to me, the separation of the ghost notes here, it sounds like it's not bad, but it sounds like another sample that was interjected into there. It's so clean.
Misses in static blue, echo loud in silent room. Float away, don't close your eyes. Smoke is written in the skies.
The lyrics.
Sing the lie they made you learn. Let it burn, let it burn. Lanterns fall from saddle.
And the distortion on the toms, which I love in general, distorting drums, but it gives it for sure gives it a certain sense of authenticity, because distortion's like you're pushing the envelope of an amp or a preamp or whatever, a microphone or whatever it is you're doing, and we don't think of unconsciously, whether we're thinking about it or not. We don't think of computers, AI. We don't think of them as being loose enough to do that. So this is a whole other level down here that I'm talking about, or maybe up here. This idea that distorting the drums and using, but again, that is more of a human thing. But whatever was, remember, AI spits back out whatever was fed into it. For this style of music, there's a few things I would point to, but for sure, all of the early Black Keys, everything before Brothers, yeah. And then vocally, a little different. I would point to something else. I'll tell you in a second.
Waving flag.
The snare changed, didn't it?
Float away, don't close your eyes. Smoke is written in the skies. Sing the lie they made you learn. Let it burn, let it burn. Lanterns fall from satellites, waving flags in black and white. Sing the lie they made you learn. Let it burn, let it burn. Lanterns fall from satellites,
Discordant. A little bit of dissonance there. Interesting to hear. It's interesting to hear if this is AI. It is interesting to hear what AI thinks a drummer would be playing with a big bill with lots of fills. Not too far off the mark. A couple of fills in there to me didn't sound as human as I might imagine, but not too far off. If you think of this as like an outro, oops, what's happening? Lost the internet here. If you think of this as like, check out the fills. maybe one too many of those that sound exactly the same. You know, as when I hit rewind and play, I'm getting error. Sure about that. Okay, let's go. Let's listen to one or two more. I thought these are not quite in order of popularity. So let's skip to Rebel Shout. Okay, let's go back to the drums. So one thing I'll say, this is another kind of side note. I think in general, on an if this were being presented, I'm just theorizing here and I'm just talking. But if this were being presented as an indie band, with 500,000, an unknown band that came out of nowhere. Probably, again, like I'll just keep pointing to the actually any indie band that their first few albums, if you check them out, it doesn't matter. I'm going to say the Black Keys again, but even though they may make an effort to make each song have kind of its own sonic identity, for the most part, they tend to have a certain, like you're recording. There tends to be a certain drum sound. There tends to be a certain, you're in maybe the same studio or not. But still, there's a certain sense of consistency. And perhaps AI, because some of the stuff I've heard, like I heard some AI-generated music that was in the metal genre. And the problem it had was like if you listen to 30 seconds of the first one and then 30 seconds of the second one and then 30 seconds of the third one, it all really kind of sounded, you started to hear like the vocals and the way it was mixed and everything sort of sounded like just the same. You really started to hear it by the time, at first I was like, wow, this is, it's not bad for, and then you hear the second one and it's very, very similar. Even though the chords were different and the tempo was different, there's a sonic signature. So I imagine that was probably, let's say that was version 2.0 and this is version 4.0. I imagine that whoever fed the information into the AI said something along the lines of more variety, because each song sounds pretty different in terms of the sonic quality, like the way that it's mixed essentially. And so that could be good or bad, depending on if you're trying to present it as a band that recorded an album and like this whole Abbey Road thing that they're going for here. I would say probably there needs to be a little more consistency from track to track. Let's check this one out. I think we're going to run out of time here, but let's go Rebel Shout one more time. It sounds to me like there was a different sample used for the fill versus the 2 and 4. I mean, for sure it was a different sample. I mean, it sounds like what I was really meant to say was it sounds like a different snare drum.
Boots in the mud, sky burning red. Voices of reason lost in our head. Eyes, while peace just flickers in my ear. We arms of war, we drown them out with a love, with rage, with a rebel shout.
So hopefully, this is just for fun, for educational purposes. Hopefully this has been somewhat entertaining. It's for those of us that are music producers, those of us that are drummers. There's a few things we can learn from these things, and we can check out. In answer to the initial question, can we tell? I think the answer is yes. If you're really, really listening, there are an infinite amount of programmable variables that one could, depending on, again, I don't write AI software, but I'm just saying in general, if you can say, give me more dynamic variance in the snare drum, give me more, dynamic variance, and give me more accents on the hi-hat, those sorts of things. We're starting to dial into perhaps where a human might play it. So I think the more of that, and what I'm hearing from track to track is that's what this AI is attempting to do, or whoever fed this AI is attempting to not make every song sound the same in terms of the way that it's mixed and all that kind of stuff. So, but I think I would challenge you, if you're interested in doing this, and I might do it too. I would challenge you to take one of these albums or take this whole playlist here and listen to it and see if your ear, your brain, after about 4 or 5 songs, starts to hear how everything kind of sounds the same. Even though they've gone to great efforts and lengths here to make each one sound different, I would challenge you to just list, just even if it's, just sit down or whatever, passive or not. But I would say, just listening, I think you'll start to notice that after about 5 or 6 songs of listening all the way through, other than the fact that the lyrics are to me sound like they're obviously AI generated. The artwork sounds like it's obviously AI generated. But the overall sound, your brain will start to go, wow, this is, yeah, I'm hearing how. Whereas a band can have a sonic identity, which is kind of what they're trying to do here. You tend to hear a lot of variance from track to track, even when they're trying to sound the same, if they're actually being played. And it's because, and I'll just tell you this for sure, there's a bunch of reasons for that. Every day is different, when you're trying to, when you go into the studio and you record something as a human and you're playing it, like one day you didn't sleep that well. One day your stomach is upset. One day you're in a bad mood because of something that happened before. One day you come in, you're in a great mood because you're on top of the world and you're recording a record and everything's great. One day you come in and it's just kind of like, we're ever going to finish this thing? All those things go into your performance. Even though we get ourselves psyched up and we take a hit of coffee and we, all those things, that all comes out in the music. And so that is something that's going to be very difficult, if not impossible, for AI to replicate. So next time you listen to, if you ever listen to an album from start to finish or listen to several songs from the same artist and the same, it's probably recorded over a year, 6 months maybe, could be 3 months, depending on the. But it's probably by the time it was written, put together, rehearsed, all those things, probably a year. But maybe the recording these days, maybe a few months, 6 months, somewhere 3 to 6 months, depending. But think about that next time you hear, if you're listening to a record from start to finish, or you're listening to several songs, think about, listen for those differences. Listen to the differences, realizing that this part may have been recorded on this day, and then 3 months later, this part may have been recorded. And again, you don't have to know the timeline just to know that there's this push pull ebb flow thing that happens. That AI sounds like it's desperately trying to replicate here. So interesting and fun idea here, and it's something I'm going to keep looking at. And if you're interested in this idea of AI and its role in drumming and things like that, leave me a comment. I could do some more of. We could take the isolated drums from these tracks, and that would be interesting. And there's a lot of AI music out there, but hopefully you found this somewhat educational and entertaining. And hope you guys have a good day. And I will see you soon. I've realized after thinking about this today that what we're really comparing in the video that you just watched is not so much a human playing an instrument versus an AI playing an instrument, although that is a legitimate discussion, and that is what most videos right now that are talking about this subject are talking about, this idea of human musician versus AI musician. But what I've realized is really what's being discussed when you're dealing with all samples, and you're dealing with sampled snare, sampled guitar, sampled everything, sampled. What we're really talking about is a human music producer who's not actually playing anything versus AI music producer who's not actually playing anything. So it's an interesting distinction to think about, and I haven't seen anybody else really discuss this. The focus that everybody has had so far has been, you got a real guitar player over here and you got an AI guitar player over here. And that is, again, that's a very interesting discussion, and it's something that we're thinking about and dealing with right now. But in the context of like listening to all these tracks in this project that we just talked about, what the real question is, the AI has been trained on probably tracks that a human producer took samples, put together. Maybe they brought in a musician for that and a musician for this, maybe. But oftentimes hits that we hear, particularly in pop music, they have been constructed by, not in the case of somebody like maybe the Black Keys, but they have been constructed by a producer or a team of producers and songwriters who have taken samples of drums and guitar and bass and everything and pieced them together on a grid in various kinds of ways. This is the way pop music is oftentimes constructed. It's been going on for a long time, way before AI. So the past, I'd say 20 years plus. So I say that to say what we're really talking about here is this comparison of AI music producer versus human music producer who's also not really playing anything. They're also moving samples around. So I think it's an important distinction just to think about, because the discussion about a real guitar player versus an AI guitar player, that's another discussion. So anyway, I just wanted to add that on to the end here as I thought about some of the things that we talked about today, as I'm looking at all the specifics of the drums and the dynamic changes and the sample changes and all that. That is something a human music producer would do on their grid. And the human music producer who's doing those things on their grid, which then went on to probably train the AI, they are trying to copy a real musician. So is there a case where AI is maybe also trying to copy a real musician? Maybe, but I think more often than not, if AI has been trained on music from the past year or two, for the most part, what they're getting fed is other music producers' adjustments of how they're doing things on a grid, how they're using samples and things like that, not necessarily acoustic instruments. So it's just something to think about. It's a range. It's not a definitive thing I'm saying here where it's this or this or this or this, but it's an important thing to throw into discussion. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you'll hit subscribe. And I mostly do drum content here, so if you're into drum stuff, hit subscribe, and hope to talk to you soon. Bye.